Hey everyone, today we're going to do a very different video. We're going to return to an old theme. We're going to revise an old video, the very first video that was done on Overwatch on this channel. It was the Advantageous space video, and I'll put a link somewhere here on the screen that you can check it out if you want to, but it was done a long time ago. October 21st was the date that it was uploaded, and as you can imagine, the game was very different back then. The state of the game was different. Not only did we not have three heroes, we didn't have Mei, Diva, or Genji, we also had a very different set of roles for some particular heroes. And we're going to go over all this. We're going to essentially revise that video. We're going to take another look at the roles that each of these heroes play in the space of the map. And the space of the map, as I mentioned in the first video, is crucial to understanding how to maximize your value to your team. Where do you operate as a hero? Where do you get the most amount of advantage on the space of the map? And it's something that you can use as a primer to really evaluate your own play in each of these maps and realize how you should be attempting to gain the upper hand. And in some cases, this can be crucial to helping your team, and in other cases, it's more of a free-flowing kind of thing. So we're going to take another look at these heroes and how they break up, and we're first going to take a look at how Blizzard breaks them up. And, you know, they split them into the familiar now defense, offense, support, tank. And this is fine. As I mentioned in the first video, this is a good kind of general outlook of what these heroes are intended to do in the broad scheme of things. I mean, you could argue that there's really niche roles for each of these heroes, and that's good. I'm glad that there's a good breakup, a good unique flavor for each of the play styles involved in these roles. But I think that if we're going to break it up into operational space, we need to take a slightly different look at it, and we're going to look at that now. So this is how I would break up the individual heroes into how they function on a map in their most optimal area of operation. Now, I want to preface these categories by saying there's a little bit of flow between certain categories with certain heroes, that some I consider hybrids that kind of exist in an area between these two operational space, these advantageous space positioning categories. But overall, this is how I would generally categorize them, and we're going to go over each one. So first of all, you have the pushers. These guys are your frontline fighters. These are the stopgaps that are holding a front line against an enemy front line, or the ones that are pushing through that front line, and they're going to be generally your tanks and your supports. Next up, we have the flankers. These are heroes that are capable of getting around the map quickly, getting into interesting spots for ambushes, getting around and taking out the soft targets of the enemy team. Next up is the Overlooks. These are heroes that are capable of getting vertical positioning high up and have advantage from height, that can rain down death or cover a wide area and eliminate heroes from range. Next up, you have the area denial characters, and these are the groupings of heroes that take an area, select an area that they want to cover, and then can provide a certain amount of denial to the enemy team, that the enemy team is forced to absolutely deal with these heroes first before they can move into an area and secure it. And then finally, we have the skirmishers. These are an interesting set of heroes because they're set up to provide fire that is specifically meant to deal with some of the other categories, some of the other operational space. They usually function on the front lines, but they can also cover your flanks. They can cover areas that other heroes can't get to, and they are essentially the counters to some of these other advantageous spatial heroes that take advantage of certain areas. The skirmishers counter that. So let's break down each individual hero and talk a little bit about where they function best within their subcategories. Let's start by talking about the most pure heroes, in my opinion, as far as how they function in the space of the map, and that is Reinhardt and Mercy in the pusher category. These are essentially your tank and healer, your archetypal. If you're an RPG fan, they're your warrior and your cleric. They are going to be the two that are the purest form of frontline pushers or stopgap defenders. That Reinhardt's going to have that shield, and he's going to hold a hard point position and not let anybody through that shield, and hopefully get some support fire from behind him. And Mercy's going to be on that front line, keeping everybody alive, keeping everybody healthy, and if push comes to shove, she can call that res in and really turn the tide on the front lines of battle. So another interesting subcategory within the pusher advantageous space role is the pushers that can do some damage, that are capable of laying down some fire or capable of some unique movement abilities that allow them to survive longer on the front lines. And who we're talking about here is Roadhog, Zarya, Zenyatta, and Lucio. These are all pusher heroes. These are heroes that you're going to find on the front lines, moving that payload forward or trying to hold that stopgap defense and keeping people alive and healthy, but at the same time, they're capable of doing some damage. Roadhog has that potential for that burst spike damage if he catches somebody with a hook. Zarya has that interesting invincibility and allows her to spike her damage if she times her shields right. You have Lucio, who's surprisingly capable of surviving longer than the other support while on the front lines. He's slippery, he can escape, he can move in interesting ways. And finally you have Zenyatta, who is actually capable of doing a surprising amount of damage with his Discord Orb, debuffing heroes for other heroes to deal damage. And these what I would consider all pushers, but pushers that are capable of that slight sort of hybrid-y skirmisher role. That they're damage dealers, they can handle certain heroes and counter certain heroes in different ways, but they still fight on the front lines. They're still pushers. Finally, the last two pushers are Winston and D.Va, and they're interesting in their own little subcategory because they're your disruptors. They're the heroes that start their fighting on the front line, but then can do a surprising movement ability to thrust themselves forward or thrust themselves into high positions. Winston has that leap, and D.Va has her boosters that allow them to get in positions that automatically force the front line forward, that they cause the enemy team to reevaluate where their front lines are. Either they have to turn and deal with a D.Va or a Winston in their back lines harassing and causing disruption to their healers or their damage dealers, or they have to let that damage go and continue paying attention to the rest of your team on the frontal push. The next category of heroes are your flankers. These are the heroes that are capable of moving around the map and getting around to the back lines of the enemy team. Usually targeting healers, targeting snipers, targeting heroes that aren't capable of handling their spike burst damage. We're looking at Reaper, Tracer, and Genji. These three heroes are interesting because they're not operating on the front lines generally. They're operating on the flanks. They're trying to find the route around the map that isn't going to be frequented by the other heroes, so that they can sneak their way around to the back lines and target these healers, these snipers. They're capable of being able to avoid damage while they get to the back lines. Tracer has her blink, Genji has his dash, he has his double jump, wall climb, Reaper has the teleport ability, and once they get into these flanking positions, these spaces around the map that aren't frequented by the pusher heroes, the alleyways, the catwalks, these specifically designed areas that are meant for flanking, that are meant to be able to be utilized by the flankers to sneak around to the back lines. Next up, we have the Overlooks. I would consider the pure Overlook to be Pharah in this case. I mean, she's designed to be up in the air, raining down death upon anybody that she can see in her wide sight line. She gets a broad view of the battlefield, and her targets become general areas of splash damage that she can utilize walls and floors to maximize the amount of damage she can do to multiple heroes at a time. And she's a small target in the air. It makes her difficult to hit, and you have to have a specific certain type of hero to counter her. Obviously, Widowmaker's in this category as well, because she is, again, a hero that looks to find an advantageous spot with verticality, to get up high, to be able to stay away from a lot of short-range heroes that can't deal with her long-range damage and aren't capable of getting to her, like a Reinhardt. Just besides his shockwave ability, he just cannot deal damage to Widowmaker. She needs to be able to maximize the hidden areas of the map, the areas that are these perches that the snipers can utilize to maximize the amount of space that they can see. I also have Junkrat and Hanzo in this category of the Overlook, because not only are they both capable of getting to high vertical positions, they also have an advantage at high vertical positions. Junkrat's drop off on his grenades isn't as much of a deal if he's shooting from above, and Hanzo, the same measure. If he's able to get to a high position, the drop off on his arrows isn't that big of a deal. They also are good at being able to survey a battlefield and determine where they need to deliver damage quickly. And so both these heroes to a certain extent are Overlook heroes, but there's a certain amount of hybrid to both Junkrat and Hanzo that they can operate as skirmishers as well. They can be on the front lines and shoot a healthy amount of damage through a Reinhardt shield or give that extra sustained amount of damage on a front line, but generally, if they can get to a high position, if they can get to verticality and utilize that space to their advantage, they are that much more deadly. The next category of heroes are the area deniers. These are an interesting set of heroes because they're capable of shutting down an area. And we've seen with the changes to Symmetra and Bastion that they've taken up this mantle of almost an ambush area denier, that you don't expect those little turrets to be all in a flanking area, and so Symmetra's capable of surprising a flanker and getting a quick kill with 6 little sentries that slow down a target and deal a surprising amount of damage when they add up. You have a Bastion who's become this kind of ambusher role of area denial that, especially when he's comboed with other heroes, you just don't expect that amount of damage coming at you that quickly. And Bastion can be tough to deal with when he's utilized in a team to cut off an area, a main artery that leads from one area to another of a map, and he has support. He has a Reinhardt shielding him. He has a healer keeping him alive. He can be deadly to cutting off a huge swath of the map. And finally, the obvious kind of standard area denier hero is Torbjorn. I mean, that turret is capable of forcing an enemy team to have to deal with that particular turret before anything else in the area. That he is the stopgap for determining whether or not you can conquer an area, because that sustained fire on the turret is going to chip away at you until you can handle it. Finally, the last category of operational space, advantageous spatial positioning of these categories of heroes, are the skirmishers. And the skirmishers are interesting because they want to put themselves in places that they can eliminate the advantage of other heroes. They want to be able to take out the flanking capabilities with a McCree or a Mei, that you don't want to let the heroes get into your back lines and cause trouble. Mei can slow them down and force the flankers to come down to your level as far as not being able to move quickly or get out of the way in time. McCree is capable of just stopping those flankers in their tracks with his stun and can deal out a huge amount of damage to a flanker who doesn't have a lot of health to begin with. So generally you'll find a McCree and a Mei on the front lines, but always keeping that side eye on the flanks, watching out for that ambush, watching out for anybody that's trying to come around your flanks, whether it's a Tracer or a Genji, and trying to take out your healer. Your McCree and your Mei really have to put themselves in a place that they can intercept these heroes. That's where they have advantage. Also in the skirmisher category, I put Soldier 76. I mean, he operates on the front lines generally. He gives that support fire for your frontline pusher heroes, and he's capable of taking out Overlook heroes like Pharah, who's trying to get that advantage in air. He can use his mid to long range damage to really sustain fire on her and take her down quickly. In general, your skirmisher heroes tend to use advantageous space, placing themselves in areas that they can be ready to intercept the advantageous space of the other heroes in the game. Ultimately, if you begin to think about the game in the terms of advantageous space, if you think about where each hero operates, where they deal their damage from, I think that you have a huge advantage if you take a wide variety of spatial positioning for damage. And what does this mean? It means you want to have at least one Overlook. You want to have somebody that's doing damage from range up high. You're causing the enemy team to keep some of their attention up high. You need to have a flanker. You need to have somebody that keeps them honest in their back lines. Don't let them get comfortable. Make their healer a little paranoid. Take her out or him out as much as possible, and not allow them to keep that sustained health running on their frontline heroes. You want to have a pusher. In the pusher, you want to probably have a tank that is capable of moving that frontline forward or holding their frontline back, and you want to have a pusher in the form of a support that keeps your frontline line's healthy, keeps everybody topped off, and is capable of maintaining a strong front line. On defense, you want to have an area denier, somebody that makes the enemy team deal with that person or that turret first before they have to deal with anything else. They're a distraction. And finally, you definitely want to have a skirmisher that's capable of dealing with their flankers and their overlooks. By understanding the tactical advantages for certain heroes and certain advantageous spatial positions, you can really learn to deny those areas or have more angles of attack than the enemy. If they have to watch more areas than they're capable of sustaining or they're capable of paying attention to, then you've gained the upper hand and you might just win the game. As always, I hope you guys found this useful. Remember, this is just a revision of an older video. I'm really going over a lot of the things that were in that video, but really updating it for the current state of the game. Give me a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It really helps the channel out. Good luck out there, and I'll see you in game.